Hi, my name is AJ Reid, and I'm writing the first book of the Elves. I'm from North Carolina, and I live with my fiance and two cats. I'm a technical writer, and I have a BA in English, and I used to be a waitress and a cashier. I also worked on help desk and transitioned into documentation. The first book of the Elves is about two twin brothers. One is alive and one is dead. Maret was born with a stillborn brother who follows him throughout his life as this creepy little shadow that only he can see. Telmut is one of the newer territories of the Elves. It's a barony, so we're focused on the ruling family of Telmut. Maret has an older brother who is set up to be the heir, and his father and his older brother are a little bit concerned that he's a coward, concerned that he's not a good successor to the barony because of his fear of his imaginary friend that they totally think he made up. So Telmut is positioned as one of the newer territories in the Elves, which are sort of a collective of, think about it like a collective of states. They have their own separate laws and such, but the world as a whole is kind of dealing with a reduction of magical resources, which are a finite supply. They are used more quickly than they are produced. There's another sort of death cult who deals with helping souls pass over. If they get trapped, they help them pass to the afterworld. They practice the only sanctioned necromancy. The main character is an introvert, and he's estranged from his family by the situation where he's got this imaginary friend that they can't see and that he's afraid of, and they don't understand why. Until they find out that this imaginary friend is real, is actually his dead brother, and is quite dangerous. Because, as it turns out, Dane has the gift of possession. So Maret struggles with Dane as a result of this. Well, one being alive and one being dead. How do you communicate with somebody that doesn't understand what living even means? They can't take in food. They don't understand hunger. They can't feel pain, so they don't understand what it's like to hurt someone. They've never felt a warm embrace, and they aren't perceived well by others, perceived by anyone, except for Maret. And so he doesn't really understand the connections between people, and so he doesn't understand what it means to damage those connections. And so Maret is trying to teach him how to be a good person, and Dane does not understand what that entails. And it's a huge disconnect. This novel deals with the familial conflict a lot between Maret and his family, between Maret and the squire that is hired to sort of help him engage with others and help him grow into himself, and Maret in the outside world. How's he going to help his older brother, who is in direct line to become the new Baron? And with this sort of meek introversion that he's got going on, how is he going to deal with, all of the problems that the barony and his people are going to face in the future? Also, how is he going to deal with Dane and this power? Maret is a person who somebody is interested in adventure as an outsider. He doesn't want to participate because he's too introverted, too paranoid, he's too drawn into this internal world of conflict between himself and his perceived brother, feeling like his family just looks down on him and that the world outside rejects him. He feels like he's stuck in that place, alone. And so when the squire comes along that his father hires, he learns to trust this person and latches onto this person. And it's sort of a natural migration for him for it to become something romantic, even though this person is a male. This leads into some of my favorite themes. So what interests me is characters that have a conflict in personality type, or even in some neurological sense. Like, how does someone like that cope in a world that doesn't even have the words to comprehend what they're going through? So someone like Maret, who is introverted, who might even be on some sort of spectrum, how does he cope in a medieval setting with magic, with possession, with necromancy, with all of these sorts of requirements that the world places on you? as I'm interested in personality types and neurodivergence and things like that, and how they fit a situation, and how the world doesn't really give quarter to us, even in our real life, the world doesn't really give quarter to us. Like, we have to successfully navigate that somehow, no matter who we are or what our faults are. That's why I'm interested in bringing that to the table in my writing. And so even somebody who's an outsider in ways of their sexual preference sort of falls into this outsider territory. In this vein with characters outside the box, I've questioned my own sexuality and gender enough growing up that this was always an interesting theme to me. And I felt like I wasn't able to find that out in the world, like a good resource or characters that sort of suited my mindset and others' mindsets. Yeah, I would come across writings and sometimes they weren't good, or, you know, they could be lacking in quality or content. I believe that writing should be good. It should be a well-fulfilled world. The characters should be realistic, and I do want a certain type of representation. I want something I relate to. I thought that it wasn't really acceptable to write that kind of theme until I started reading Mercedes Lackey and Lynn Flewelling. And then I realized, no, those are published authors. Okay, so I can do this too. There is an acceptable means to discuss the heroes that I want to discuss, and the themes that I want to discuss. Well, the first book sets kind of a dark tone for the rest, because I'm not gonna lie, this is the setup for a new major conflict on the rest of the elves and the rest of the fantasy world I'm working with. So yeah, the end isn't super pretty, but I hope that that readers will be interested to see where it goes from there. Yeah, so this novel is really setting up a big conflict and a major bad guy that everyone else is going to have to deal with. So I'm hoping that in the future there's going to be more politics and more war, whereas in the first book it's very centered on what's happening with this family kind of internally, and it's going to branch out. I'm very interested in finishing this series out and seeing what else I can do with the elves. I already have, like many other characters and their stories planned, woven within the texture of this. Yeah, there's a lot more I have to figure out. I already have enough content sort of in my brain space for 2 follow-up novels and maybe a short story that tells like the major mage war conflict. After I finish this novel, I'm also interested in urban fantasy. So like changing the setting entirely. A more modern take on how people and monsters can get involved in urban fantasy. I mostly write for myself, so if 10 people pick up my work and enjoy it, that's great. I know that what I'm writing is probably going to be a little bit niche, and that's fine. As a personal goal, wanted to write this kind of content. Quality, world building, characters you can identify with, and struggles a little bit niche. I hope that there are readers out there that'll enjoy it. I've told my friends and coworkers, yeah, I'm publishing a book, but please don't read it. So maybe if they read it, they won't tell me. If there's anything I want anybody to get out of this one, it's don't be too hard on yourself. Beating yourself up over something over and over again is not the same thing as, you know, analyzing yourself and trying to address the flaws that you want to change about yourself. There's a huge difference between those concepts. I think it's a hard line to walk between accepting oneself and knowing what you want to change. Like, from the start, Maret is incredibly hard on himself, and he perceives everyone else as being really hard on him. And it's not always true. He and I even have a hard time identifying, like, what are the things that I think I would like to change, and what do I feel pressured by outside forces to change? Because those don't have to be the same. But it doesn't do any good to beat yourself up over every little thing. If you watch this and you end up reading my book, thank you so much. Please tell me if you like it. Bye.
You look more relaxed, though.
I am relaxed! Man, I'm starting this with laugh tears.
We should have started with the shot.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a whole lot of me swearing getting edited out from this. I can tell you that right now.
I love it. Outtakes just for me.
Right?
Who dis?
I don't know.
Why they stop? Death glare.
Yeah.
I was on a roll.
You're good.